各位家长、各位同学，大家早上好以及晚上好，欢迎来到 In America Education 在美国暨教育2023年的系列讲座。今天我们将要共同探讨的话题是入读美国私立学校的适应的问题，以及说长期的本科规划的工作。我是在美国暨教育背景提升和本科申请顾问，大家可以叫我小杨老师。很高兴能够作为本场讲座的主持人，和大家共同探讨这个非常多家长都很关心以及都有一些困惑的话题。Well, dear parents and students, good morning in North America and good evening in China. Welcome to In America Education 2023 webinar series. We are discussing transitions to private schools and long-term college preparation today. I am the Associate Consultant for College Preparation Background Enrichment at In America Education. My name is Yang. I am very glad to help with this event and discuss this hot topic with two of our amazing consultants. 今天我们也是非常有幸请到了我们两位In America 非常资深的导师来为大家做分享。他们分别是来自 K12 部门的 Krista 老师，以及说本科申请部门的 Joshua 老师。在开始之前，我们首先会请两位老师分别做一下自我介绍。Before we get started, I would love to invite Krista and Joshua for a brief self-introduction. Krista, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you so much, Young. My name is Krista Carragher. Some of you may know me. I see some parents on here that I have had their families. And so I am a K-12 consultant, and I have been in the education world for over 10 years as an early childhood educator, working in schools like Trinity, Avenues, and some private preschools across New York City and New Jersey, as well as doing some admissions work with these schools as well. And I'm really excited to be here and speak to you today.
Thanks, Krista. 我们 Krista 老师呢是K-12 的资深申请顾问，那他从事教育工作以及学校的招生工作已经超过10年了。那他也是曾经就职于美国著名的私校3一学校和艾文世界学校，他也持有着纽约大学幼儿教育以及特殊教育的双硕士学位。那今天在场的很多家长和学生可能已经接触过了 Krista 老师，那他也很开心今天能跟大家做一个分享。Okay, we also have Joshua here today. Joshua, thanks for joining us. Do you want to give a quick self-introduction of yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So my name is Joshua Morrow. I'm a senior college admissions consultant and also associate director for our college division. I've been working in admissions for about over 10 years now. I started off working directly in college admissions offices at schools like Harvard Law School. And for the last 6 years, I've been working directly with students and families.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Joshua. Joshua 老师是我们本科申请部门以及研究生申请部门的资深顾问。那他曾经在沃顿商学院以及哈佛大学的法学院都做过招生的工作。那他本人呢也是有10年以上的本科申请和规划的经验。那他也非常激动，今天能和我们可能年纪小一点的学生家长来进行这一次的分享和讨论。Okay, without further delay, I would love to hand this over to Krista. Krista, do you want to give a quick overview of the subtopics, and we can go into the topics right now?
Sure, thank you. So basically what we will be discussing today, a quick overview, is we will talk about what to expect, right? What to expect when you go to these private schools, what are the advantages, the challenges, how to prepare for the transition, as well as new academic life. Culture shock, right? Coming to America is a vastly different culture than what you might be used to, as well as the best way to communicate and go over some communication. And then Joshua will speak a little bit more about college planning and what to keep in mind for the long-term college plan. And then we'll go over some final thoughts and have a brief Q&A session.
好的，我们今天其实的重头戏呢，会给大家介绍一些美国私立学校它的一些特点，以及对于我们学生来说它的优势、挑战在哪里。那以及说对于刚刚转到美国私校来说，我们如何学生去准备与适应新的学术生活，适应文化冲击以及校园的交流和交往， 以及我们的老师也会给到一些长期的本科规划的建议，以及最后的一个我们会有一个提问的环节，给大家来跟老师进行一个沟通。Okay, let's move on to the first part.
So what to expect at private schools and what you will see when you are there. And Joshua, feel free to chime in at any time if you want to add anything as it relates to college. What you will see for the private schools, it might be a little bit different than what you're used to, particularly if you go to public school. You will notice that they have a very student-centered and focused, they're very focused on student development and who you are as an individual. Diversity is very prevalent throughout the school. Many schools here are really trying their best to make it a more diverse student population as well as faculty population. So that's something that might be a little bit different, and what you'll notice, as well as the wide array of academic and extracurricular opportunities. There is so many ways to get involved in terms of classes and activities outside of school for sports or the arts, clubs, different things like that. So that's something you'll notice at private schools.
对，所以在美国的私立学校，其实大家会注意到很大的一个特点，就是说他们是非常以学生个人为中心，非常关注学生个体的这样的一个发展的。那同时呢，他们的师生背景也是非常丰富多样的。你在这里，你可能会遇到跟你相同背景的人，但是也可能会遇到跟你完全背景不相同的这样的一些学生和老师，以及说，那在私校中，另一个很大的特点就是会有更多的学术以及课外的机会去给到学生，去让他们丰富自己的课余生活。
And another part of what you might notice is that these private schools have a very strong sense of community and involvement, and that is in regards to everybody, students, parents, faculty, and staff. Everybody gets super involved, whether it's a day school or a boarding school. The only difference is that a boarding school, parents aren't as readily involved, but they are still active participants as well. You'll notice that the schools have a safe, secure, and well-organized environment. Even in those major cities, security is, at the utmost concern for a lot of these schools. And so they have security in place to make sure that you as parents feel safe sending your children there, and that your children feel safe. And really just college and world readiness. And what I mean by that is you might notice that at private schools, students mature a little bit faster. The expectations are set a little bit higher. They are actively involved in so many activities. They're taking on a lot of leadership roles from a very young age. So it really prepares them for college and their next steps in the world.
是的，在美国的这些私立学校啊，其实会有一个大家可能之前不太熟悉的概念，就是社区参与感和社区的责任感。就不管是教职员工、学生还有家长，他们都会非常的重视，说我能为这个学校以及为这些人、这些同学、这些老师能够做到些什么。所以这其实也是一种集体意识的培养，以及说个人领导力的一个发展。以及说学校对于这方面的重视。那另外呢，私立学校相对于一些，比如说公立学校啊或者其他学校而言，会有更安全、更有保障的组织、更良好的一个环境。这样的话，其实家长也会更加放心，说 OK， 我的孩子在学校是有被保护到的，是一直是安全的。那以及说学校会培养学生去培养这个连接大学和世界的这样的一种意识。那比如说他们会很早的去进行一些领导力的培养的项目，以及说鼓励他们去进行一些社会活动。那其实也是从很小的时候开始培养他们的这样一种能力，以及说让他们变成更好的在本科申请的时候更好的选手。Okay.
And now let's talk about some advantages of private schools, right? You might be wondering, what's the difference between private schools and public schools, and what are the advantages, as well as we'll discuss a little bit later some of the challenges. And I'll pause a little bit more to give Yang a chance to translate as needed. some advantages to private schools. I have worked in private schools. I went to public school as a child in New York City. So I have a sense of what exists in both. And one of the things that you'll notice is one of the advantages is the high quality instruction that you'll get at these private schools. They really encourage students to use their voice, become critical thinkers, right? They're teaching you how to think, not what to think. And I think that is a little bit of a shift from the way that education, used to be in the past, and private schools do this very, very well.
是的，那我们谈到说私校的优势，其实也就是说，我们为什么要选择美国这些私立学校，而不是说去公立学校啊，或者是其他的一些学校？那其中，Krista 老师提到一个很重要的一个点，就是私立学校能够给学生的很高质量的指导，不管是从学术方面，还是从学生的个人成长和课外活动方面，那他们会特别重视说，你一定要擅长发出自己的声音，以及说去用一种批判性的思维去思考。在这样的环境中，如果你保持沉默，如果你不去进行思考，那其实是不被鼓励的。那其实私校也是希望他们能够通过这样高质量的指导，去帮助孩子、帮助学生成长为更有批判性思维、更会为自己去发声的这样的一种学生。OK。
And also there is more challenging coursework, as well as the opportunity to specialize in interest areas. So, for example, I had a student who was really greatly interested in marine biology, and you're not going to get those kind of courses at public school. In private school, that might be readily available. And if there is not the opportunity to have that kind of coursework in the curriculum, you're able to do independent studies and work with, one of the faculty members, a teacher, as your advisor. And so this is a really great opportunity for students to really hone in on their passions and discover what kind of coursework they want to take, which will lead into kind of the college and the next step. So they can do that, definitely in high school.
其实刚刚提到说这种高质量的指导，那其实它会有一个结果，就是说它的课程会更具有挑战性。也就是说，在期间，它可能会包括有一些独立的，比如说学术项目或者是研究项目，学生可能会有一个老师作为你的这门课专门的导师，去帮助你做一个研究项目，或者说指导你去做一个实验。那在这个过程中，你不仅要去体验、去学习，你还要有自己的成果做出来，比如说写一个报告，或者是写一个文章。那这个呢，其实也是一个发掘兴趣的一个机会。在这个过程中，你可以去跟你的老师去进行讨论。OK， 我之后的兴趣是什么？那我之后的选课会往哪一个方向去？那他们也会给你更多的指导。在这个选课方面，以及说未来专业选择以及兴趣的发展方面，所以这也是私校一个非常大的优势。OK。
And the last point about the advantages of private schools is you'll really get more individualized support from faculty for academics as well as socialization. They're very supportive. There's usually kind of like an open door policy where you're allowed to go and just grab, your teacher and say, hey, can you help me with this? I feel like I'm struggling in this area. And as well as any kind of socialization assistance as well. Some schools on campus might have mental health counseling and other things to kind of help you work through any social situations that might arise in private school, particularly because, high school and middle school as well can be a tricky time. And especially if you are boarding, that is something that the schools take very seriously, and they want to make sure that you feel supported. And especially because you're away from your family, they want to make sure that they are giving you all the additional support that you need in terms of, schooling and just in general for your own personal mental health.
那他老师也提到说，在学术上肯定是我们会私校会提供更个性化的一个支持，包括选课以及课程的一个辅导。那另外在生以及说学生的成长方面，那很多美国的私校都会提供专门的一个指导，尤其是如果你在寄宿学校的时候，学校会非常的重视学生的个人成长，以及学生跟其他学生 跟学校里面的其他员工以及老师交往过程中，是否会出现各种各样的问题？因为学生也是在这个青春时期，他们也会自己内心比较敏感，以及说他们如果说刚来到美国来参加学习生活，会不会有各种各样的问题？他们私校呢都会有更加完善的、更加个性化的一些支持给到学生。所以在这个方面，其实作为家长或者作为同学来说，也会更安心一些。
So as I mentioned, in addition to that additional support that you receive, when you need help outside of the classroom, in the classroom, you'll also notice that there are much smaller classroom sizes with a very low student to teacher ratio. In public schools, that is not the case here in America. There is sometimes, for if your child is younger, sometimes you might have two teachers. So there is a real emphasis and importance placed on the smaller class sizes, as well as having ample access to resources within the school. And you're able to kind of network based on students' interests, which is something that is, really important, especially in terms of like that college planning and those next steps throughout high school, is you have, a wide variety of access to resources, families in the area that might have, certain connections to be able to say, oh, like I have a great company that you can go to for this and do some internships, different things like that.
好的，那其实说，刚刚有提到说个性化的支持嘛，那在这个个性化的支持的系统下面，肯定是会有更小的班级的规模。那其实大家之前不管是在国内上学，还是在美国的公立学校上学的话，那这个班级规模都是非常大的，一个班有非常多的学生，那老师可能是没有特别多的这样的精力可以照顾到每一个学生。但是在私立学校，他们的班级规模会非常非常的小，以及甚至说如果比较年轻的、比较小的孩子，他可能会有2个老师来专门去指导他，所以这也就意味着学生会有更多的资源在这个学校里面去利用。而不是说，那我可能如果班级规模过大，我可能没有办法及时发出自己的声音，或者说我可能没有足够的资源去进行学习。所以这也是私校一个非常大的一个特征。那同时呢，最后一点 ，Krista 老师也提到说，在私校会有很多积极去参与社区活动，以及说有很多参与社区活动，以及说其他的像实习呀，或者其他社会实践的机会。那比如说，如果有家长或者说有学校老师，有导师，有各种各样的社会资源，那也会介绍给学生说 ，OK，那我可能会有这样一个公司的位置，可以给高中生去进行实习，或者说去进行观摩。那其实对于高中生来说，都是非常非常难得的经验和这个资源吧，因为普通来说，高中生申请实习啊，或者是其他资源，都是非常有难度。所以这也是我们来说私校，尤其是美国这些非常成熟的私校，一个非常大的一个优势。
Sorry, Jan, can you just go back and make that last point?
Sure.
So there's also active community participation activities and events, whereas in public school, you might notice that kids will go to school and then they kind of end their day and go home and go about their business, and there's separate classes that they take after school. There's always something happening at school on campus, and families are encouraged to participate in these activities and events, and not just for resume building, but also just because it's a huge part of that community atmosphere.
Yeah, sure. 刚刚 Krista 老师也补充了一点哈，就是说在私立学校，他们会有更多的社区活动的这样的一些机会。那比如说，他们每个学校会有各自特殊的这样的一个去庆祝的节点，或者说他们会为学生创造更多的机会去做这样的一些活动。那这也是就读美国私校的一个非常大的优势。
And now let's move on to some of the challenges of private schools, right? Not everything is rainbows and sunshine. Private schools, there are some challenges that can be presented as well. Some students might notice to feeling a little bit of more pressure, a greater pressure to perform well in all areas, particularly academics. A lot of students, if you talk to any students at private schools, they might say it's a little bit more challenging than my last school. The focus on, different areas is different for academics. And also they're, being they going back to that community aspect. They're not just working and focusing on school, they're also participating in sports and arts and clubs and different activities. So there is this pressure to perform really well.
是的，那聊到这个孩子们去就读私校，他们也可能会遇到的一些挑战。那比如说在学术领域，或者说在课外活动领域，其实孩子们会有更多的压力。那比如说其实会有很多的学生，他们都擅长某一种的运动项目或者是球类项目。那在这样的一个过程中，如果说我作为一个学生，那我其实没有特别大的在运动方面的特长，那我这个时候其实是会感觉到有一些压力的。所以这可能对于学生来说是一种在迫使你去找到自己的一个特长，或者说在你的同龄人中去找到你的兴趣，发挥你的兴趣，表现得更加出色，这样的一种压力也是作为就读私校的一种挑战。OK。
And I'll talk about the next 2 points kind of together because they kind of go a little bit hand in hand. You might feel a tendency to be more competitive with your peers. This is pretty typical, I think, for private schools and just in general at that age in high school, right? There you have a lot of your peers who are involved in a lot of activities and leadership. And so you might feel that need to be a little bit more competitive. And also feeling out of place in school or within a peer group, right? Kind of finding your place where you belong in private school can be a little bit of a challenge because everybody is so actively involved in different areas, and finding where you feel that you fit in can be a little bit of a challenge when you're transitioning.
是的 ，Chris 老师也提到说，那延伸一下上面的刚刚这个话题，就是说我们其实学生到了美国的私校，会感受到同学之间会有非常多的竞争。那不管是刚刚说的体育活动，还是学术方面，你就都会发现，大家其实都是非常有好胜心，非常有做得出色的这样的一种决心的。那肯定会有这样的同学之间的竞争出现，以及说在一个非常多样化的群体中，我怎么样能够找到我自己的位置，我的优势是什么？那我可能我的定位是什么？那可能也会用孩子一段时间才能够去找到自己的定位，去适应这样的一个定位。那这也是 Krista 老师提到说，那可能刚刚来到美国私校会面临的一些挑战，对于学生来说。
And some other challenges that you might notice is you might need to spend a little bit more time on homework. And for some students, particularly those in China in public schools, I hear all the time that they get a lot of homework. I would say that private schools, particularly some private schools, give maybe even more homework than that, because you have to keep in mind that you're also spending all of this time on extracurricular activities. So finding that time to do your homework once that day ends, your academic day and extracurricular activities, can be a huge commitment, as well as the grading system, the requirements, the expectations might be different than what you might be used to in school. Schools here don't just focus on, a final exam or anything like that. There are different components to your grade that are very important, and you have to make sure that you're meeting all of those throughout the year.
是的，那其实很具体的一种挑战就是说，学生会感觉到他会更多的在家庭作业和课外活动上投入时间。那可能在之前，他可能会觉得，在来到美国私校之前，他可能会觉得，我其实每天有很多的休闲时间，我可以去自己分配。那其实如果说来到这个私校，就会发现，其实每一个私校都会有比较多的家庭作业，因为每一个老师他都会根据课程的难度设立这个越来越有难度的家庭作业，是需要你一定会按时完成，一定要按照完成的时间以及说完成的优秀程度给你评分的。那同时也会注意到，就是说这样的一种评分系统，这样的一种作业要求和在国内或者说在其他的公立学校和我们所习惯的这样的一种方式是完全不一样的。它可能就是要求学生去投入更多，以及说去非常努力的去学习。那这也是Krista 老师提到说 我们就读私校的非常大的一个挑战。
And now let's talk a little bit more about the transition and what that looks like. So, how to prepare for the transition? There are some things to do and some things you can avoid. The first part is of what you can do is really just staying organized and being prepared to stay on top of your assignments and due dates can be very helpful. Something that I like to recommend to my students is, if they give you a calendar, a planner, right? Something that you can really stay organized, color code if needed when assignments are due for different classes, as well as making note of any kind of extracurricular activity commitments can be helpful throughout the year because you're going to be more independent than maybe you have been in the past. And especially for boarding schools, it's your job to stay on top of those due dates and everything like that. You're not going to have your parents there helping you. So it's really important that you learn that that's your job and your responsibility ahead of time before actually making the transition.
是的，那我们讨论说如何准备这个过渡期，或者说如何去适应这个过渡期。那 Krista 老师想要分享一些我们学生需要去做到的，以及说需要去避免的这样的一些事情。那需要做到的，其中最重要的一条就是，一定要明白说你的作业也好，你的课外活动也好，那其实这些都是你自己的学习，你自己的工作，一定要提前做好计划。并且看好哪一个作业是在什么时候截止，以及说在截止日期前按时的去交作业，这在私教的评分系统中是非常非常重要的一项。如果你错过了，那老师就是没有办法给你这一部分的分数。所以 Krista 老师会经常建议他的学生去设置一个自己的时间计划表，然后把每一项作业都井井有条的列在上面。这样的话可以大大提高学习的一个效率，以及说也会避免说忘记某一项作业这样的事情。尤其是如果是在学校寄宿的同学，这个时候你是没有家长的帮助的，所以学习变得会计划，也是对于寄宿学生或者说私校的学生一个一定需要去做到的事情。
And the next part is to make sure that you are open-minded in terms of, the social situations that you're going to come into. You're going to be interacting with students from different places. If you're in boarding school, they're going to be from all over the world, right? So you're going to encounter a lot of different interactions and cultures. So just make sure that you're open-minded, and that will definitely set you on the right path, as well as going back to that community engagement, being ready to join clubs, activities, sports, and attend events, even if you're not part of them, can really help you become part of that community. So getting in that mindset of, okay, this is what I'm going to do, checking what you want to be involved in can be really, really helpful to kind of get you excited for the transition.
另外说到这个过渡嘛，那其实很重要的一点就是我们在面对来自不同背景的同学、老师的时候，那学生一定要去变得更有这个开放性的思维，去包容这个他在生活中遇到的大家与他不同的点，以及说去更好的训练自己，成为一个这样一种开放的有这样的一种开放性思维的人。那同时也是要去准备好加入社团或者说体育活动这样的一些活动中去，让自己更好的去融入这一个集体。这也其实是在学术之外，能够让学生们更好的去实现过渡到私校的这样一个非常重要的一个步骤。
And on the other side of what to avoid is, just going in with a negative mindset, being fearful of asking for help when needed, right? Your teachers are there to support you, the school is there to support you. Being afraid or unwilling to change. That doesn't mean you have to change who you are, but just know that you might kind of open up, a different perspective than what you had on certain situations. So, just go in with that mindset and sticking to your usual routine, right? This is your chance to try new things and explore what you are interested in and passionate about. So just avoid kind of sticking to what you already know and explore your options.
Krista 老师也分享了一些在这个过渡期学生们一定要避免的一些事情。首先一定不要害怕在需要的时候寻求帮助，也就是说如果在需要的话一定要向周围人寻求帮助。学生们会有专门的导师，也会有老师以及说科任老师，在他们对于学术以及说对于生活有困惑的时候，他们会给到一定的及时的相应的帮助。那这个时候学生一定要说出来，这个时候老师才知道 OK 你需要什么，然后我才会给你相应的帮助。如果说你就是不说，就是憋着，那这个时候其实没有人能够真的知道我们该怎么去帮助你。所以这对于学生来说也是非常重要的，就是说一定不要害怕寻求帮助。另外就是不要害怕不要害怕改变，因为我们这个生活环境和学术环境一定是会在进入私校时候做出一些改变的。那如果说无法适应这种改变，可能就是没有办法更好的去融入。那可能包括会说到我们不要去一直遵循惯例，我们要去打破常规，去尝试一些新事物，这样才能去更好的利用学校的这样的一些资源，去进行一些提升和进步。
And the next part of adjusting to this new academic life that you're going to have is, again, going back to what to do and what to avoid, is to organize your time and take advantage of those free periods to complete your work. I mentioned before that you might get a lot more homework and you might have extracurricular activities. So figuring out where to carve in that free time is really important, as well as getting into those good study habits, which work best for you. It's not the same thing as when we were in school where you memorized everything. So finding what works for you, study groups or anything like that, asking teachers for help can be really important. And don't wait until it's too late. If you need help, ask a friend, ask your teachers, seek out that help sooner rather than later.
那如何去适应新的学术生活呢？其实还是那几个重要的点，我们再强调一下。一个就是一定要合理安排自己的时间，不是说只有给你一天一大块的时间才能让你去写作业，对吧？那比如说我们有空闲的时间，或者说比如说小部分的时间，10分钟这样的一个时间，你也可以利用起来去完成你的作业。那同时在这个过程中养成很良好的学习习惯，这会对学生未来非常多年的学习和工作都会非常有帮助。以及最后一点，也就是刚刚提到过的，不要等到为时已晚的时候才寻求帮助，一定要及时的去跟你的老师、跟你的同伴说，我需要什么样的帮助。
And on the other side of it, what to avoid is, as I mentioned before, some of you may be used to focusing on those big exams only, those final exams, kind of have to get out of that mindset, because being quiet in class is also goes hand in hand with your grade. Participation, discussion, key parts of how you learn and part of your grade. So it's not just the final exam. It definitely does play a role, but it is not the only part of the grade that matters. Attendance is also important as well. Making sure that you're there, you're engaged, and you're present is really important. The other part is making sure that you don't struggle alone, right? Try to avoid that. Like I said before, seeking out help when you need it. Your peers might be feeling the same way as you during the transition, so reach out to them, listen to one another, be that, support system for them as well, and they can give it back to you.
同时在适应新的学术生活的时候，我们也有很多需要避免的，可能之前形成习惯的一些事情。那比如说，我们不能只关注大的考试，不能说我一个学期就看最后期末考试，就只复习期末考试，而是要在整个学期的过程中，就要一点一点进行学习和积累。那比如说在课堂上，一定要去积极的参与，一定不能只坐着听老师讲课，不能抱有这样的心态。因为在很多学校，在所有的学校中，他们的参与分都是非常非常重要的一点。那老师会根据你的参与度进行评分。如果你不去参与，老师确实没有办法知道你的参与度是什么样，你在这一部分的表现怎么样。老师也会非常为难，说可能这个分数确实没有办法给到你。那同时呢，我们也希望说 学生们、孩子们不是独自奋斗，而是说跟同龄人保持沟通，去倾听彼此的声音，来互相的答疑解惑，这也是会对他们的生活非常有帮助的。
And now let's shift a little bit and talk about culture shock, right? So this is going to be very different than what you or your children might be used to. So how to deal with that. What to do, we'll talk about that part first, is just understanding the values and the culture of the new school as well as your peers. And your peers might come from all different places. So you might be interacting with a lot of different cultures. But again, going back to being open-minded is something that is just really important, and just kind of embracing that everybody is different and unique in their own way. Getting involved and immersing yourself in the community is very important. That helps you adjust and kind of figure out your place, as well as taking care of yourself and keeping your connections back home. It's totally normal to feel homesick, but making sure that you're taking care of yourself first is something that's super important. Keeping in contact with your old friends and family can really help that support system, as well as making new friends and finding your place within the different social groups. We talked about how that could kind of be a little bit of a challenge, but the more that you immerse yourself in the community, you'll find that social group that really fits who you are. And you might have different groups of friends, and that's okay. Everybody likes different things, and it's just about embracing that everybody comes from a different place.
那其实聊到文化冲击这件事情，大家应该肯定心理上也是会有很多的准备，但是有的时候你遇到了，确实会比较难以处理。那我们也想分享几个要点给各位同学，也就是说，你在可能转到私校，或者说刚刚开始美国这边私校学习的时候，首先我们希望你去更多的了解新学校，以及说你的同学他们的价值观和文化。如果能做到彼此尊重、彼此了解，那是我们最希望看到的结果。那同时在这个过程中，你也会去融入集体，去享受这个集体生活。那在这个同时呢，我们也希望你和家里人、和父母和你的更多的家人去保持这样的一种联系。那这样的话，你也会有一种归属感，你也会在遇到压力的时候可以有倾诉的对象。那同时呢，我们也鼓励孩子们去结交新的朋友，很正常。其实如果你有不同的朋友，你跟有的朋友聊得来，跟有的朋友不是那么聊得来，这都是很正常的。那我们希望你在这个社交群体中找到自己的位置，以及说更多的去交新朋友。
And the other side of it is what to avoid. Really just sticking with those people who have a similar cultural background or similar way of thinking as you. This is your opportunity to kind of branch out and experience new things and new people. So try to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. We talked about it before, right? Being open-minded, avoid kind of that negative mindset about your new environment and being, just negative about every aspect of it. You don't like this because it's not like home, right? It's normal to feel homesick, but making sure that you are keeping that open mind is really important, and trying not to compare yourself to others or squashing your own culture or thoughts, right? Being yourself and being who you are is why these schools chose you. So making sure that you own it and really just embrace that is something that's really important as well. And others might learn from you too. So it's not just about embracing the culture, but it's about also teaching others about yours. And also, not relieving your stress when you feel it. Seeking out and utilizing your counselors can be really, really important. As I mentioned before, those mental health counselors on campus or whoever you feel comfortable speaking to can really help you. It could be a peer or something like that can help you with the transition and deal with culture shock.
在处理这种文化冲击的时候，我们也有一些希望同学们去避免的一些点。比如说，有些同学可能是只和自己有相似的文化背景的同学们一起玩，那其实这一点也无可厚非嘛。但是同时，我们也希望你去更多的去结交新的朋友，有更多不同的思维方式、不同文化背景的人，这样你才能真正的融入说你这个集体中。那同时呢，我们也希望同学们不要对新环境持消极或者封闭的态度，一定要也就像刚刚说的，保持一个开放的心态和这样的一个思维状态。那同时呢，不要将自己和其他人 的文化背景或者是其他的特点去进行一个比较。那其实这个学校选择你给你发 offer，就是因为你是你自己，你有你自己的特点，那你也可以把你自己的特点告诉别人，或者说教给别人，说你的文化是怎么样的，那让别人也更多的了解你自己。我们千万不要在这个过程中产生自卑或者是其他消极的一些心态。那同时，如果你没有办法缓解你的这种情绪和压力，完全可以找你的老师寻求帮助，他们会给你更多的资源，会给你更多的帮助，帮助你去处理这样的一种文化冲击带来的消极的这样的一种心态。
And next, let's talk a little bit about the importance of communication. Communication is key to, all aspects of our life, but particularly for the school transition. So let's talk about academics first. You will be forming the relationships with your teachers and asking for help early on can be very crucial to your learning and your success in private school. So making sure that you start out strong to build those bonds with your teachers or peers can be helpful. Oral and written communication are essential to your success, whether it be just for academic classes or for applying to college later on. Your classes are maybe more discussion based, but you will also be writing a lot of essays that will be important. Exchanging ideas and learning from your peers or from the faculty members and learning to communicate your point is something that is necessary. So if somebody disagrees with you, it's about learning to make your point in a very professional way.
那在这个时候，我们也非常想要强调，还是要强调那一点，就是跟你的老师、跟你的同学去交流这样的一种重要性。那在学术上呢，跟老师更多的去进行交流，可以帮助你跟老师建立这样的一种联系，并且可以在很早的时候寻求到老师在学术上给你的帮助和指导。那同时，不仅是口头的交流，以及包括像邮件啊这样的一种书面的交流，也是在美国学习或者说私校学习中一个非常重要的部分。那包括课程上也会有非常多的讨论啊，或者说论文这样的一些要求。那这也要求我们的同学们去训练自己交流的能力，以及说书面写作以及口头语言的这样的一个能力。那同时呢，我们也希望大家能够学习用交流这样的一种方式，有效的传达你的观点，而不是说言之无物，对吧？那这个时候其实也是要训练自己思维的这样的一种过程啊，也就是我们说的学习有效传达你的观点是非常必要的。
And the other part of the communication that's important is your social and emotional side of yourself. Helping with conflict resolution in social situations with your peers is something that is important to learn how to communicate. So the same way you would do it professionally in an academic setting, making sure that you are able to resolve any issues with friends can be critical to, having that positive social interaction. Being able to confide in others to express positive and negative feelings that you might be having is also important for yourself, as well as for others. It's kind of how you might bond with your friends, and being able to express yourself is really critical to your emotional intelligence, but also for your mental health. Being someone your friends can also rely on for support and being considerate of them, showing them empathy is really something that really forms those strong connections with your peers, and is something that you have to realize not only leaning on them, but that they can lean on you as well. These are all just really important in forming those relationships.
其实交流的重要性，它也很多会体现在这个社会层面上，以及说自己的情绪价值这个方面。那比如说，更多的交流当然可以帮助你，解决和你在同伴的这个社交场合中的这样的一些冲突，能够更多的缓解你们的关系，就说提升你们的关系的质量。那同时呢，向别人倾诉、表达你的积极的以及说消极的感受，也是会让你提高和朋友交流的这样的一种质量，以及社会 交流的这样的展现出你的优势吧。其实展现出你消极的这样的一个情绪，并不是一个什么丢人的事情，而是你在与朋友交流中，一定需要去做的这样的一个事情。同样的话，如果你的朋友展现出这样的消极的情绪，你也希望我们同学们也非常的有同理心，成为朋友可以去寻求支持的这样的一些人。那这个过程对于我们建立关系、建立良好的关系都是非常非常重要的。
And to go into what is next, right? We talked a lot about different aspects. I'm going to invite Joshua to talk to you a little bit more about the college aspect of the transition.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. So now I'd like to share a little bit about that college admissions perspective on the transition to private school. One of the things that I think is most important that I see students always blowing by and forgetting is finding balance. So what I mean is to find balance between your academic, extracurricular, and personal life. You cannot be successful if you're only focusing on 1 and 2. And what I frequently see is students are just thinking about academic and extracurriculars. They're not thinking about that personal enrichment. And I can tell you one of the most common questions I ask in my interviews with potential college students is, what do you do for fun? Colleges are always looking to get to know you. And so if your academics are in a good place, if you're involved at school, it's okay for you to do a little bit of reading for yourself, play some video games, play a sport. You have to invest in all aspects of yourself.
那我们也非常高兴能邀请招少老师来讲一下我们下一步，也就是说进入私校之后，我们进行这个本科申请长期规划这个过程中可能需要注意到的一些点。那首先，我们想要强调的是，同学们一定要在学术以及说课外活动以及个人生活这3个点中找到一个平衡。那如果你只注重1点或者其中的2点，我们觉得你可能一定不会可能达到你的这样的一个理想的申请结果。那我们希望你一定要这3个点都去重视。那不要认为说你之前想的最长走的路就是最适合你的路，而是要在这个过程中发掘你自己的这样的一种特点，以及说在3个点中寻找一种平衡。
Right. Don't assume the path most frequently traveled is the best one for you, and carve your own path throughout high school. And what I mean by this is just because the students before you took a particular set of classes or was successful within a certain group of clubs or organizations, figure out what's best for you. It's okay to be unique and, again, to carve your own path. I see a lot of students who will choose their classes because they think it's the most competitive class list, but you should really be choosing things that are relevant to you and your interests. That's what college is going to be most interested in.
那同时呢，我们也非常想要看到高校也非常想要看到同学们，能够说开辟自己的一种道路，也就是说根据你的兴趣去选择，比如说你的课程，你的这个社会的一些经历，以及说你的社团的这样一些活动，不要觉得说某一个东西就一定是最好的。我们要看什么东西是最适合你的。那在衡量你这个选手的过程中，那大学其实也是非常重视你选择这些的理由和你的兴趣所在的。
All right, so 4-year extracurricular commitments will help show your dedication and work ethic. In your freshman year, try to join a number of different commitments and then scale back and make adjustments. And what I mean by this is having some commitments that you return to year after year shows a little bit of dedication. It shows that you stick with your commitments, that they're not frivolous. It's something that you're investing in, that you care deeply about. And those aspects that you care deeply about is what matters most to college admissions. And so even though it's okay to test out a few different things, you should have a few commitments that you're returning to year after year. And your freshman year is a wonderful time to really explore everything that your new school has to offer.
那在其实高中阶段我们有4年的时间可以去进行课外活动，但是我们在这个4年中不是说我们一直去 做很多，我们没有重点的一直去做更多的事情，我们不是以数量取胜的，而是说你一定要展现出你在哪一个内容上面是你最感兴趣的，那你可能在每一年都会有更多的时间投入到这一个活动上面去，那学校就会看到 OK 这是你最感兴趣的东西，这也是你奉献最多的这样的一个东西，所以我们会鼓励说9年级我们去尝试很多不同的东西，然后在后面呢我们进行一定的缩减，在你感兴趣的东西上面投入越来越多的时间。
Now, the next one I have on here is something that I see very, very frequently, which is don't limit yourself or count yourself out. I have a lot of students who will come to me and they'll say, you know, I'm not Carnegie Mellon material. I don't know what to do. That's my dream school. You should never be the one who is sort of trashing your own dreams. Just because your goals might seem very large doesn't mean they're not attainable. That's one of the ways that we help students. We help them get to that level. It's really about figuring out what you need to do from now, your start point, to your last year of high school to make you into that attractive student. So as you start out and as you transition to a private school, don't immediately start off that journey by thinking, I can't do something. What you should be thinking about is what can I do now to get that goal, to achieve that dream.
好的，我们也提到说，一定不要限制自己，一定不要说我不能做什么事情。所以可能同学们有时候会觉得我的目标是不是有点太大了？我是不是肯定没有办法做成这件事情？其实我们一定不要这样想，我们要看说这个目标和这样的，比如说这样的一个梦校之间，他和我和他的差距在哪里？那我从现在开始去进行规划，去进行计划，我应该从哪里开始着手？我应该怎么样一步一步的实现这个目标？即使说不能实现这个目标，我是不是可以作为更好的自己拿到一个更好的申请的一个结果？所以我们经常跟年纪小的同学说，即使你现在还觉得自己不是一个非常好、非常好、最好的学生，但你一定不能说在这个时候就说我做不到，而是说我们一起去计划，我们一起去努力。
All right, and what to keep in mind for college. You are more than just good grades, and I can't stress this one enough. A hyperfixation on academics is never what a college admissions office is going to be looking for. They want you to get involved, they want you to explore new things, and they want to figure out what matters most to you specifically. So again, it's going back to that idea that you're not just a cookie cutter. You should be your own person and figuring out, again, the things that are most exciting and attractive to you specifically.
那我们也为大家总结了说我们本科申请要准备的一些要点，那也就是说不要局限于保持好的成绩，以及说过程中可能会遇到困难，但是完全没有关系，以及最后一点说你不需要在一开始就把一切都弄清楚，因为首先呢，对于学术的过度关注，或者是对于某一方面的过度关注，都不是大学所要寻求的，或者大学要看的点。我们重要的是参与其中，探索新的事物，来找到对你来说最重要的事情，来去这个构建出你的一个故事线。
It's okay to hit a few bumps along the road. And I do mean this very sincerely, even though I'm sure many people will say that can't be true. But admissions officers are going to view your full transcript. They're not just going to look at a GPA or a singular number. And so that means, yes, a B is okay. You can still get into the school of your dreams. I have a lot of students who will come to me and say, you know, I got a B in calculus. I'm never going to get into that dream school that we talked about now. And that's simply not true. It really is about the full journey, the full sort of academic history that you're presenting to a college, not just a bottom line GPA.
对，那我们在这个过程中遇到的一些困难，很典型的就是我们可能有些同学获得了1、2个 B 在这个成绩单上，他们就非常的焦虑啊。但是这个其实完全没有关系。其实高校呢，他会看你整个完整的成绩单，他会关注你整个是不是有进步，以及说是不是有很明确的你的兴趣点、关注点，而不是说看到你的1、2个 B 就是直接的去否定你和拒绝你。
All right, and the last one that I have on here is you don't need to have it all figured out. And this one I find really sticks with some students. A lot of, when you're joining these private school communities, you have really motivated students who know what they want to do. They're a 9th grader and they're already talking about how they're going to go to med school. It's okay if you do not have that same sort of clarity around your interests and your passions just yet, especially as you make the transition to private school. It's okay to test out a number of different things and figure out what works best for you. Some trial and error is definitely needed, and it's never going to be looked down upon in the college admissions process. It is exciting to us when we see students trying different things because it means you are genuinely exploring your interests.
那最后一点，也就是说，不需要在一开始就把所有的事情都弄清楚。尝试一些新的事物是我们非常鼓励的。如果说你发现它不能很好的和你未来的兴趣结合、未来的目标结合，那我们可以停下来，我们可以去做新的事情。那在这个过程中，我们希望能找到，说你真正觉得非常激动，做这个事情非常激动，我以后就是想申请这个专业，或者说我之后就是想做这件事情。我们找到这样的兴趣所在的过程中，肯定会有一些错误的发生，可能会有一些尝试，你觉得没有必要，这些都没有关系。对于我们来说，这些都是非常珍贵的一些经历，以及说必经的这样的一些过程。
So let's talk about some final thoughts to leave you with. Basically, overall, just know that there are many opportunities to participate in private schools. Making sure that you get actively involved is something that's important. Keeping track of it on your calendar, events, assignments, vacations, right? Something to look forward to going home can also be really important. Being aware that change can be challenging, particularly if this is a brand new cultural experience. Finding what works for you is good for your transition to make it successful. Be yourself and stay positive, right? As Joshua mentioned, probably the thing to avoid is having a negative mindset about yourself. Building confidence is about positive self-talk. And I'll let Young translate that before I jump into the last point. Sorry.
好的，我们在最后呢，Krista 老师也想分享一些想要分享给大家一些非常重要的点。其中第一点就是，私立学校会给大家提供很多的机会，大家一定要积极的去参与进去，不要浪费这些机会。我们也要孩子们也一定要学习去记录这些事情，以及说为自己的计划做准备。那其中第二点呢，就是非常要注意的一点，就是任何改变都可能会具有挑战性。那大家在这个过程中不要特别的紧张，而是要去寻找自己适合的方法来进行这个成功的过渡。一定要做你自己，并且保持积极的态度。
And the last point is just start off by building those strong relationships with your peers, teachers, coaches. It'll make it easier for you when you need the support to go to them for help, and they can help you. The other part that I'll add in is that I just thought of in terms of college process is that these people will be recommending you for college. So it's always good to have those strong ties and connections with the teachers or faculty at your school. So start early and build those connections. That way they really get to know who you are and can speak about you in the future very authentically.
好的。那其实最后一点，也就是说，一定要从最早的时候就开始和你的同伴和老师建立非常牢固的这样的一种关系。这不仅是可以在同学们需要的时候寻求帮助，并且可能在之后的申请过程中，你想老师也会给你写推荐信嘛，你也希望老师去给你写一篇非常有支持性、非常有逻辑性、非常好的推荐信，那你可能需要很早的就去跟他认识，来展现出你的优点是什么。那这个可能对你之后的大学申请都是非常有帮助的。Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Krista and Joshua. It's very informative and inspiring. So let's move on to the final Q&A session. We have so many students and parents discussing in the chat room. They are also asking some good questions about the topic. I will pick just one question we can discuss right now. And if we have chance later or in the future, we will like discuss more about this topic because this is really something parents and students are curious about. Okay, I'm looking through the chat box. 好的，我们接下来会进行 Q&A 这样一个提问环节。那我们今天因为时间有限哈，我们只是邀请老师们回答一个问题，然后之后如果有机会的话，也欢迎大家跟老师们一对一的进行一个交流。Okay, I saw one question. It is about what can parents do to help kids catch up with some academic studies in private schools and build their confidence, because many of our audience are like parents. They are very curious that what they can do, what they can offer to their students when they transit to private school, and also when they prepare for like long-term planning for college preparation. Krista, do you want to go first to talk about this?
Sure. I think something that parents can do to help children with their academic studies is really just being positive and supportive of them, right? As Joshua mentioned, getting a B is not the end of the world. So trying, your best not to be negative if they are trying their best, because it might just not be their strongest subject, and that's okay. Helping to build their confidence and just telling them, hey, listen, I know you worked really hard on that. Maybe next time you can do better, or seek out help, right? Tell them to go ask for help can be helpful to build their confidence, and teaching them to do that positive self-talk. Like Joshua mentioned before, right? The last thing that you want is your child to be really negative about themselves. So really just being positive and encouraging can help them to boost their confidence, and also that will help them with their academic studies as well, because when they are having an issue or struggling, they'll be more confident to go seek out that help when they need it.
好的 ，Krista 老师也给我们分享说，作为家长，那我们如何去帮助学生在转到私校的时候去跟上他们的这个学术上面的学习，以及说帮助他们建立自己的自信心。老师分享说，如果说你的孩子在这个过程中他表现的不是非常有自信，那你其实作为家长一定要鼓励他说，这是所有的可能转学的孩子，或者说刚刚来到美国就读的孩子会遇到的一个问题。那在这个过程中一定要帮助孩子树立自信心，以及鼓励他去及时的寻求帮助。因为我们其实注意到很多孩子他会比较犹豫去寻求这样的帮助，那在这个过程中家长如果起到一定的引导作用是非常好的。Okay, thanks for sharing, Krista. Joshua, do you have some like add on to this question about what can parents do to help with the like long-term preparation?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I'll just quickly start off with is, of course, if your student is ever very much so struggling in a course, as we had highlighted earlier, use all of the resources that are available to you, both inside of school and outside of school. A lot of private schools have very robust support services. It comes from that student-centered sort of focus that they have. And so utilizing the resources within your community is very important, as well as utilizing them outside. We do very frequently work with tutors, and I've seen that make a huge improvement in a lot of my students' academic trajectory. So those are one piece. And then the second thing that I would just say is to remember, not every single student has to be a rock star in every single subject. Maybe your student is struggling with calculus and they're just barely keeping their head above the water, but they absolutely love history and writing, and that's really where their passions are. That's okay too. You don't have to be perfect straight across the board. It's okay to have a little bit of, fluctuations here and there.
Okay, thanks for sharing. 焦莎老师他也分享了几个说在长期规划中家长能给到什么样的一些帮助哈。老师有提到说，其实在学生的整个社会实践过程中，如果家长能够有一些比如说资源，实习的资源，或者说社会实践的资源，去帮助学生去创建他自己的一个项目，或者说仅仅是作为实习生来观摩一些项目，这样其实都是对于孩子们来说非常宝贵的一个经历。所以说家长也可以和我们的导师来进行更多的沟通，来确定说我们如何去帮助学生。另外就是说家长也不需要过度紧张哈，在这个过程中我们的孩子没有必要说在每一个方面每一个学科上他都是 非常非常好的，它都是非常非常突出的。那我们每个孩子都会有自己的优势和他的兴趣点所在。那作为家长，如果能够引导他找到自己的兴趣点，是非常非常的对他有帮助的。好的，那非常感谢大家的提问以及老师们的解答。相信通过今天和我们2位导师的沟通，大家对于我们的这个转学到私校有了更多的了解，对于长期规划也有了更多的了解。那其实大家有兴趣的话，也可以欢迎与我们的 In America 小助手来进行一些联系，来获取更多的信息。再次感谢大家的参与，也非常开心今天能跟大家有这个交流的机会。好的，那大家好好休息，以及早安以及晚安。Okay, thanks for joining us, Krista and Joshua, and thank you for all of our audience, our parents and students to join us today. And we are always here to provide help and also offer what we can do to help kids to transit to private schools and prepare for their long-term application. So thank you and good evening and good morning. Thank you today for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.